Greetings, bloggers, vloggers, followers, and potters. Dustin here from Dustin's Dynasty, here at you again this week with this week's edition of the vlog. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. It's Sunday evening. I'm a little behind, but it's in a little bit of a slump the last few days. Finally came out of it today. It was not easy. It was a little slump probably from Friday night all day yesterday, and finally came out of it today. I did go to church today, but there's a little bit of slump when I came back. But now we're out of it, and hopefully we're going to move the day forward. With that being said, I want to thank everybody for listening again. Today's vlog was basically geared by a comment, and I want to remind everybody that if you leave comments, I do read them. So somebody had left a comment about communication and how I've communicated so well over the years. And I don't know the exact answer to give to that because communication was very hard for me. It may not seem that now. I'm 30. I'm in my late 30s. I have my own home. I work part-time in a job that pretty much requires me to be very open, very candid. I wouldn't say open and candid, but I have to be on my toes, and I have to speak. I have to speak the spoken word. I have to ask questions. Most of those questions are from a script of questions that could change at any time. And even to get to that point of my job, and even today, there are times I get anxious about doing that. So, communication is always a struggle. I wouldn't lie I wouldn't lie to you if I said it wasn't. Even in communicating with people that I've known all my life, if I have not really got to know them very deeply and very well, that can be a struggle. Texts are sometimes left unread for a while because I don't know the answer to give back to somebody, even though I've communicated with a person very intensely over a very long time. If somebody says something that I don't know the right answer to, I often second guess it or constantly think, and I always worry, do I say the right thing? Do I do this? Do I do that? So communication is always a struggle. I don't want to pass the fact that, I got it all in the job and all good with communication, because it is indeed a struggle. Even communicating with neighbors or anybody in that that I don't always communicate with, it's always a struggle. And I wouldn't be here being honest with you if I wasn't having a struggle. But with that being said, it was always I wouldn't say that I was always the best communicator. A lot of I think a lot of times, I was the shy kid. I was always the shy kid. I mean, sometimes, I was open in school about things. I think public school always gave me the environment to speak to some degree. And in fact, public school eventually did open up to be a good thing, but it did come with a great deal of bad in the process. I didn't have the greatest. I mean, I started out probably until I went to senior high. And back when I went to senior high, it was 10th through 12th grade. But until I got there, and I had to learn a lot about myself, getting balanced, getting on the right medication, all those things. It wasn't, I did communicate. Wasn't always the best way of communicating, and I always had a shy sense of communicating unless I really got to know you. And if I get to know you, I'm pretty cool with you, and I can communicate. It's very wouldn't say that it was easy. I for the most part, I would say the first 3 years of school, I pretty much knew a lot of people. I mean, I knew we were in a small school. I wouldn't say small, but one of the smaller schools in the district. It's not there anymore. It's torn down, but there was only 2 classrooms per grade, so you pretty much knew everybody until I wasn't well there. And then I went to a smaller classroom. I went to an emotional support classroom, and I pretty much spent the next 4 years with the same 10 to 12 peers most of the time. And we knew each other very well, if I wasn't frank with myself. We knew how to push each other's buttons. It was called an emotional support room for a reason. And the fact that, um, we knew what set each other off, and we knew how to piss each other off, quite frankly. That really set a very volatile situation at times, but we communicated well with each other. I will deny that fact. Sometimes a little too much. And then, that same pattern continued for the next 2 years, my 2 years anyway, in junior high school. And it expanded, to other students within that school. And junior high was really one of the worst times, but I was a communicator, but I was not the best communicator. And I would not understand social cues or, understand things. And it sometimes got me into trouble. These sexual innuendos, things of that nature. That I did things that weren't probably the best, or the what you would think of me as being the good person back then, and I do regret that to some degree, even today, to some degree. But and then we went, and then eventually you became shy in a way, because you didn't know how people were going to react to you. And for a long time, I couldn't open up. I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't even talk to my people on the phone. I would be horrible cold calling. And it's ironic now, because my job that I've been in for 13 years is now, it does have some cold calling. I wouldn't say 100% cold calling. I know the person I'm calling. They may know I'm calling them, but not all the time. And sometimes you have to think on the spot, and think right away, of an answer or a response or something to have to say. It's not always been that way. I've not always been 100% perfect. Um, my job when I started was asking people out in the open to do surveys, and that was not always a good thing for me. But I, eventually come accustomed to it. We don't do it that way much anymore, but when I have to do it, I do it. And I don't know what to say how I eventually came that way. I think it was learning by other people, watching other people, watching. We have these inventions now called YouTube, um, which is always not always a perfect example. Facebook Reels, all these things we have to model other people off of. And I wouldn't say 110% that was how I did it. I remember, many things in life, but I remember that I couldn't even sit. I when I first came to my day program, and I've been there 19 years in a couple weeks, and I would sit in the corner because I couldn't function, and I couldn't talk to people. And eventually, I did open up to people, and some of those people are still there today, but it was very hard. Um, I to say where I've came, I think I had to open up. I had to feel comfortable about the people that I was surrounded by, and open up more and more and more. And some people gave me that segue to open up and talk, and let me know how. Let me open up and have the floor, and talk, and do. And it isn't easy, to say that. I would have never thought I would have been talking as much as I have been today. And I've even done other things, but it just doesn't seem like, and then understanding, the communication is one thing. Understanding how to communicate is one thing, but then how to do it properly. How to, understand, how to navigate social situations, how to understand social innuendos, things of that nature. Always, that's another hard piece of it. And I think it's taken me a lot of mishaps and some other things, but really I've mastered it basically on my own. Some, I would say sometimes, as we got later in speech therapy, in high school, I think that helped some too, but not all the time. It's been a very challenging road, I would say that. But even to go and, um, even in vocational training when I went there, to a school in in an hour away from my house, I think, there was things I wanted to say and things I would have loved to do, but I never opened myself up because I was afraid of rejection, afraid of being hurt. And even to this day, I still have those feelings among myself when I'm talking to others, whether it be text message, whether it be Facebook Messenger, whether it be any kind of communication. I'm afraid of going that extra level or saying that thing that I could be rejected or not paid attention to. It's not easy to say that. It's very challenging at times. I can even remember I have a text that's probably 4 days old that I haven't responded to yet. And it's not a bad text, but it's just, you have to think the words to say, and do you want to feel sorry for yourself? All that business. It's just very, it's just, it took a lot of time, it took a lot of go, it took a lot of courage to open up and speak and say things, but it was a lot about modeling. It was a lot about, listening to other people, seeing how other people communicate. And I'm still learning today. In fact, I'm working on it in therapy because it is still an issue. I think, of how to socialize properly, how to, how to not be afraid of rejection, how not to be afraid, of being turned away or shattered. Because, for many autistic people, including myself, I think we're so much bullied, and bullying is a big factor when we talk into these big arenas like public schools. And I'm a firm believer of public school if it helps you. There was a when I was in junior high, and that was a very volatile period. Cyber school had just came out. It was 2000, and they had talked about maybe doing that. And my mother was hesitant, very, very, no, we're staying in public school. And I did finish there, and I did finish quite well. But the thing is, I don't know how I've done things like that, but it's the fact that I don't give up at communicating. I guess I rehearse things 20 times a day. You will hear me, if you would put a microphone in my apartment and say, I would rehearse things 20 times a day of how I'm going to say them, how I'm going to respond, how I'm going to react to them, because I just don't, I can't think things through. I can't I can't I can't get the words out unless I rehearse them or think before I act, or think before I say them, because I don't know what I'm going to say or how I'm going to react to something. It's very challenging at times, but I've came a long way. I know I have. And to say that it's one thing over another, or one thing that may have presided over another. I think I've just picked up and gone with things, and I don't know how I've done it. I honestly don't, because I've just rode with the punches, I guess. And I just learned off of other people, and learned how to navigate situations. And I do very well because I learn, and I learn sometimes from mistakes. And I hate to say that, but it is the truth. Sometimes you learn from your honest mistakes. And it's amazing how somebody who would barely communicate or barely look at you. I was one who couldn't make eye contact for the longest time. I couldn't, and it was a struggle. And to these people today who say, force that eye contact, and I have to say, I was at times forced to make eye contact, and it became hard. It became easier over time. And I'm not condoning it. I'm not, because I don't feel that everybody should be forced to make eye contact. But I've done better with it. And there are times when things get tense or they get very rough for me, that I will shield my eyes from something or not make contact with something. But I think for the most part, I can make eye contact if I have to. It's not easy, but I do it. I don't know. But as far as communication, I've really worked really hard on it for a long time. But it's trial and error. Like I said, there's times it goes well, and there's times, I'm not perfect, and I rehash those mistakes that I've made over time. I think, if I always think, you try to be perfect, or you try to make things go the right way, and it always doesn't show that way. Um, but I've learned over time, and I've actually been quite the communicator, but it hasn't come easy. And I for the people who have been there and fought the fight for me to keep going and keep trying. I can't say thank you enough. But it's something, that I just don't give up. I think, I know I have to communicate. I know it's a part of life. It wasn't always this way, but I know it's part of life now. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I wish I had friends. I think everybody does. I think everybody on the spectrum wishes they had friends. And I do have a few that I talk to, but I think, sometimes you wish you could communicate better, or you could communicate more efficiently. Um, but I think I do well enough to function in society. And that's the one thing I am proud of myself, and I don't let it back me down, is the fact that I can communicate pretty well and enough to function in society and do things and be polite to people, and know when to be polite, and when there's a time to be banterish, and when there's a time not to be. I think, navigating the social spectrum is always a very challenging thing, but for the most part, recently I do quite well. So, I think that's just a little bit of my struggles with communication, and how if I've answered that, please comment if I haven't answered that correctly. But it's just something I've just, learned over the years. And, if anybody who is, of the youth, the people in school, I just have as communication goals in speech. If you're taking speech language pathology, if you're meeting with your SLP, please make sure that communication, social boundaries, those are in, because those help very much so. And it made me a lot better person because of that. So, with that being said, I want to thank you for listening. Be sure to like this video if you haven't already. Subscribe. I thank you for the current subscribers. I appreciate it. I'm always trying to do good content. And if you have a comment, please leave a comment, because I will follow up with it, just like I did this week. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest at Dustin's Dynasty, on the web at dustinsdynastyusa.com, and on Linktree at Dustin's Dynasty. I want to thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. Have a good week. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.